tonight we're joined on our panel by Jeannie Zaino, political science professor at Iona College, Dominic Carter, political journalist, blogger, and former Congressman Rob Simmons as well here. Thank you, Congressman. Of course, Andrew, who you saw in the first block, our senior political correspondent. All right. If I asked 100 people on the street here, tell me which political party today they think acting sounds more like the party of business. I don't think I'd offend either party if I'd say that'd probably be just about everybody would say the GOP. But today's Republican Party feels even more pro-business than ever, perhaps to a point that could be bad for the party. Now, Andrew, we've been looking into this, and we certainly heard this as a constant theme on the campaign trail.
Yeah, and Rich, with all deference to the congressman, if somebody said that ice cream, chocolate, and hugging a child was bad for businesses these days, you get the feeling that somebody in the GOP would present a bill that would outlaw all three of those.
Whoa.
Here now, some very I knew you'd like that. Here now, some very pro-business positions, some dressed up as anti-regulation ideas, others just a little strange to the ear unless you're a CEO.
We all care about the environment. These EPA regulations fail the common sense test, Mr. Speaker. That agency's on a regulatory path to destruction of our economy. They're destroying our jobs, and they must be reined in.
The SEC is given grossly new powers, and remember, the SEC didn't do a real good job uncovering the Bernie Madoff scandal, but now their powers have enhanced, but it's almost like a blanket has been put over the SEC.
People that have tried to manipulate things on the world stage in order to pull money out of the U.S. for their own benefits, they're being found out. And they're not helping the environment, they're helping themselves. And that is tragic.
We could raise taxes on people. That's not the way. Corporations are people, my friend. We could raise taxes on. Of course they are. Everything corporations earn ultimately goes to people. So, where do you think it goes? Whose pockets? Whose pockets? People's pockets. Okay, human beings, my friend.
I'm going to ask a question to everyone here on the stage. Say you had a deal, a real spending cuts deal, 10-to-1, as Byron said, spending cuts to tax increases. Speaker, you're already shaking your head. But who on this stage would walk away from that deal? When you raise your hand, if you just feel so strongly about not raising taxes, you'd walk away on the 10-to-1 deal.
Now, the president's friend, Warren Buffett, just came out and said all the billionaires should be paying more money. I have a suggestion. Mr. Buffett, write a big check today. There's nothing you have to wait for. Perhaps Mr. Buffett would like to give away his entire fortune above $200,000. If that's what you want to do, have at it. Give it to the federal government. But don't ask the rest of us to have our taxes increase because you want to have a soundbite.
All right. I love the soundtrack, Andrew. Thank you. Yep. All right, Congressman. If you were giving free political advice right now to the candidates running, let alone the party line, do you want the GOP to say corporations are people too, and that the line is don't raise a penny on the affluent in America? Is that in the best interest to get elected of the Republican Party?
Here's my comment. First of all, I am a pro-business, pro-small business congressman. I'm also the former business advocate for the state of Connecticut, so I'm a believer in the free enterprise system. I'm also a life member of the Sierra Club. So, you know, you can include several different values in the same. I called
you a confused man.
In the same package. In the same package, you can have several different
Congressman.
values.
Hallelujah.
How many businessmen and women do you know that are for dirty air and dirty water? Not too many. So, you know, my advice is.
But corporations pollute, especially when unregulated.
Yeah, and so do people. And so, you know, you can't simply set it aside and say corporations are bad. But here's my main point and my main advice. 70% of new jobs created in America today are created by small business, 20 or less employees. 73% of the businesses in Connecticut employ 9 or less employees. So Small business is where the focus has to be. Big business can take care of itself. John Chafee, Senator John Chafee used to tell me, take care of the little guy.
Right, okay, let's say there's unanimity at the table. Let's take care of the little guy, okay?
Take care of the
whatever
little
we want to say, 9 employees, 20 employees. The divide is happening right now. You're going to hear certainly from Mitt Romney, is going to tout his experience at Bain Capital, among other things. You heard him say corporations are people too. Bachmann with her pointed comments to Warren Buffett. But if we can bring up, guys, I think it's B9 here. This was a poll when asked during the whole debt limit fight what people want in terms of shared sacrifice. Pretty much 2-to-1. People say taxes on the wealthy, make them pay what they paid under Clinton. Make them pay even less than they paid under Reagan in terms of, wait a minute, and 2-to-1 on the even election year, they say, yeah, we like the idea of shared sacrifice. You're going to cut some of the social safety net programs, stuff that people use, Medicare, Social Security, whatever else. Make people pay into the kitty as well. And when they hear 10-to-1, the GOP still wins enough, not one candidate, I don't think that's good politics.
Who is the wealthy? Is the wealthy?
Let's say somebody $1 million or more.
No,
$1 million or more.
A small businessman who files his business under subchapter S and shows income of more than $1 million a year.
Just like the Koch brothers.
No, not like the Koch brothers. Not at all.
So where's who constitutes rich for you?
Small business is frequently included among the wealthy because of the way they file their federal taxes. That's been true in Connecticut.
You define it.
That's
who
been true in New
rich,
York.
so we don't pick on the small business guy.
Warren Buffett is rich, and I call his bluff. And Warren, if you're listening, I want you to write a check for $1 billion and give it to the federal government. And if you do, Warren, I'll write a check for $1,000 that I don't have.
Okay.
But I think it's enough that
but
BS
you and I both
from
know.
people like him who's just looking to showboating the issue.
But this is why I don't think it's just BS, and guys jump in here,
BS.
is that Warren Buffett isn't alone in saying, between the deductions I have, between the write-offs I have, he pays net on an annual basis less than 18%. His secretary, she's paying 30-something%.
And why is that? Because he doesn't pay himself a salary that's worth a damn. He takes dividends.
And also because he can get deductions through the wazoo.
We all know that. And we all know that.
Where's the GOP saying stuff that the public wants in terms of why are we giving oil industries breaks that normal small businesses, by the way, don't get?
Most oil industries folks will tell you we don't really need those breaks. They're provided to incentivize behavior. But if you want to take the loopholes away, take them away.
You know what?
Take them away.
The net result of all of these policies, we have the widest wealth distribution gap in the history of this country. The rich, the upper rich have more money as a bigger slice of the pie than they've ever had before. People, all they're hearing from corporations are, we're not hiring, we're laying people off, we can't afford to give you a raise.
But they're sitting on more cash than they ever have in the history of
Companies
America.
are doing very well, and people aren't.
Public policy is responsible for that. I would have voted against the TARP bailout. I certainly would have opposed the so-called stimulus package. I mean, face it, the public policy with regard to our economy in this country today is in a shambles, and you can point your finger at corporations and say they're to blame, but in actual fact, it's the government, the Congress, the president who set the public policy that are the rules of the game.
The public says that I think makes empirical sense. Wait a minute, so let me get this straight. 2008, this country literally almost went off a fiscal cliff. The SEC, whose job it is to police these guys, was underfunded. Well, this was under the Bush administration, by the way, underfunded, and they appointed a guy I used to serve with, by the way, who basically didn't do anything. And then we hear the rhetoric now, well, you know what? Let's get the SEC out of business's business. Keep them out of there. Stop all this regulation. It's stifling growth. Somebody at home will say, wait a second. I got my house foreclosed on because of some of these clowns, and now we want to say leave them alone? I'm saying whatever your politics are, I think that comes across as tone deaf. Am I wrong here in just a political equation, not Republican or Democrat? If you're coming out saying leave the job creators alone right now, I don't think most of America's buying that argument.
But you're making a very reasonable, thought-out argument.
It happens once a year. Yeah.
Good politics is a subjective process. Some of these, with no disrespect to you, Congressman, some of these elected officials and Republican elected officials, they feel that it's good business to defend these businesses, all under the argument of it creates jobs. And you and I both know that that's why we're here right now, because that's not happening. But the message still sells in certain districts across
Jeannie,
America.
will that sell? Do you keep your job in Congress if you say, keep off the business, don't raise a penny of taxes? You do the same polls to me every night. You know polls better than I do, right? Is that a message that'll win nationally or even on a statewide thing? I mean, districts, I grant you, are unique. But these are national messages. 10 candidates stuck up their hands and said, I wouldn't raise a penny, even if it's 10-to-1 cuts. Is that good politics?
Well, you have to think about it at a local level. If you think about policies in localities and states where people feel that, New York being an example.
But they're running for
where
national
people,
office, though.
Well, they're running in districts if they're running for Congress.
No,
or
those guys were
Senate.
presidential
And,
candidates
well,
who
those
all
guys are
raised their hands.
presidents
That's
too,
what I'm talking about.
But if you think about it, if you are in a state like New York where you feel corporations are fleeing to the south or fleeing overseas because government policies are not supportive of the type of work that they're doing, I don't see anything wrong
But
with
is it
trying
good for
to have
Mitt
a
Romney
middle.
to say
trying to
corporations
have-
are people too?
Well,
I wouldn't raise a penny.
That argument goes back to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said corporations are people because corporations enter into contracts. That was in the 1800s. Now, it does sound silly.
I'm not talking
silly,
letter, I'm talking
but-
spirit.
No,
Is that what the public wants to hear?
But that's a legal argument and it is true legally. And so.
But they're trying to get a vote. They're not trying to win a case.
No, but and I agree with you. When Mitt Romney comes out and says it, it sounds silly to people. I say it in class. Look at the 1819 case. Government, corporations are people, and people laugh and chuckle because it sounds funny. But in truth, in legal terms, that is the truth. Should he have said it on the stump there? No, because it sounds silly.
Corporations
But
don't go to jail. Corporations aren't unemployed.
No, absolutely not. But the point of the Supreme Court's argument in the 1800s was that they enter into contracts. Without those contracts, we don't have jobs.
Look
so
at you
those
getting all
are
legal
important.
on me, Gene.
Yes.